Good afternoon. My name is Antonio G Linan. I'm one of the partners of SV60 Cordon and Linan Arquitectos. We are an office based in Seville, a city in the south of Spain. I'm going to present this project of 317 social housing units in Ceuta. It's important to say for those who don't know Ceuta, I must explain that although Ceuta is a Spanish city, it is located in the north of Africa. It's in the north of Morocco, just in front of Gibraltar. Is where the Atlantic Ocean finishes and the Mediterranean Sea starts. And I think it's an important point to understand this project. And the main approach to this project was made in two ways. The first one was to deal with the site, with the place. And the second one was to create like a new typology of housing units to try to improve the way of life of the future inhabitants, who are people with special needs due to social imbalances. And the first approach about the place or the site was to understand the site as a single concept, but based on a complex site, on a complex vision that go beyond the strictly physical or physical or visual values. So the place that we envisage has wind, light, malleable spaces, like the future memory of the future inhabitants, in addition to certain property development and urban regulation that were already established. And the project is located in a mountain site with a difficult topography. And we started proposing like an abstract framework, like a grid that you can see in this image, to be like superimposed over the old topography. That grid is based on geometric and some orientations in order to establish a new system to be like superimposed to the previous topography. And when we started to work on the competition for this project, we used the support of some artistic representation, like this one of Klimt and Banksy, just to understand the mix of different elements, like different textures, and to understand the relation of the figure and background that we were using to create that new topography. So this is the general plan, where the new topography gives support to our proposal. So the outline of thoroughfares is maintained. The topography is modified to suit the characteristics of each plot, depending on the framework governing the intervention, that new grid. And spaces and buildings are adapted to this new topography. Also, we work on an open proposal for the whole mountain, as you see here in the different plots. The plot assigned for this project was only this one, facing to the north. So we started to work on the sections. The sections were quite important because all the buildings are placed on different terraces of the new topography. You can see in this concept model that we try to work to understand that new topography that we were proposing. And we wanted to give like continuity to the ground floor, so the sections you can see that way that the buildings are like floating over that terraces. So it's better to see here. The buildings are proposed in a way that try to give greater importance to the empty space, to the relationship with the terrain, to their own or independent form. In this way, the The buildings adapt to the topography, either supported or floating, as you can see in these different sections of the buildings. And they are focusing on the continuity of the different space, including the inner spaces of the building that I will explain later. And this is the first model that we started working on for the competition. It shows the first proposal where the buildings use the topography to generate like a special situation that are carved geometrically and hollow out or empty the pre-existing reality. That's what the idea, like sculpting the buildings with using that new grid that we proposed. Okay, due to the sharp slope of the plot, that is 40 meters of height difference in the maximum height, the proposal is to amend the topography by means of a series of terraces integrated into geometric framework with a slope of approximately 5 meters on which the various buildings will stand. So these buildings adapt to the different slope, adopting like a grid pattern, as you see based on the grid and on these kind of orientations in relation with the wind also. And also to seek better orientations, spread out in a south to north orientation, which correspond to the main orientation of the plot. In addition, to this arrangement will occur like in relation to the adjacent street in order to allow pedestrian access to the various points of the plot that we need to get facilities to be easy to get inside the plot by the people. So these are the main drawings to understand the project, the general floor plans, section and elevation, where you can see the ground floors in the floor plans are released. Also you can see in the sections to give like a spatial continuity to the streets. We didn't want to generate like a closest street between the buildings. We tried to create an independent fragment of a city that reconstruct like perceptive essences associated to an understanding of the place itself, like empty spaces, squares, streets, vantage points, and also courtyards that were configured as basic elements in order to define this like a new neighborhood. The program is like it's mostly residential, but it's a mixed program. We also have like commercial premises in some spaces in relation with the squares that we were generating inside the plot. Also, we have a provision of parking spaces in the basements that try to use the topography to be also in relation with the natural air, with natural ventilation. So the buildings are based on a linear block system with vertical course supplying 2 dwellings per floor. And as you can see, the buildings are crossed by voids that in the floor plan works as courtyards, and in the elevation works as like deep holes connected to the courtyards. You see in the elevations like these deep voids are connected in the section with the courtyard, as I will explain now. It's better to see in this floor plan. This is a zoom of the floor plan, just to understand this system of voids and terraces that are like going through the building. The idea is a building model that aims to improve the quality of life using a system to optimize the condition of use and energy saving, encouraging wherever possible the use of the site's natural resources. The degree to which the sun falls on the facades also depends on the orientation, it's north and south, and is controlled by means of a deep facade in this south orientation, which is deeper on south and less so to the north, and thereby ensuring that in summer the sunlight does not directly impact the inside of the dwellings, and in winter, when the sun is lower, is shining in directly to heat the rooms. A cross-ventilation system is proposed also, since all the dwellings have the double orientation. And this system is based on the inner courtyard, which is connected to the outside by terraces that change their orientation to improve air circulation and keep the homes like continually ventilated. This was the first proposal of the housing units that we made when we won the competition. And as I said before, this is a project that proposes a specific approach on adapting the different buildings to the previous landscape, trying to understand the existing topography, but also it tried to propose a new site on the traditional Mediterranean courtyard houses using a modular growing system that builds drilled buildings in floor plans, but also in section. This was the final proposal for that housing units. The buildings are based on a base rate adapted to the personal family units that will inhabit them. It's based also on a rational model generated by a 3x3 meters grid, grouped together depending on the needs of use for each room. The diversity in positioning the terraces, the patios, courtyards, and that empty space inside, in general, seeks to establish internal spatial continuity by establishing like internal relationship between the different dwellings and try to improve the performance and energy efficiency of the buildings. All the homes have double orientation, I said, that terraces and that inner courtyards, and as you see in the section, this connection with the different dwellings in height are always ventilated and always generating like internal relation for the inhabitants. And as I told you, we propose like a growing system to engage the housing units, not only in the floor plans, that is in this scheme, but also in the sections. And also that kind of voids were connected to the ground floors to give like that spatial continuity inside the buildings in that voids. So this is the final state of the buildings. You know, Ceuta is a very mixed, cultural mixed city. Most of the population are Muslims. Just in front of the site, there is a mosque and a Muslim cemetery. Is where this photo is taken. And it's also important to say that the buildings will be inhabited with different cultures, also Muslim, Christians, and different kinds of cultures. This is the view from the sea. As you see, the environment is really heterogeneous with different kind of colors in the facades of the buildings that are surrounding the plot. And in this site, it was like the higher part of the topography with like 40 meters of height with the difference between the two streets. And as you see, the buildings try to move over the plot, trying to breathe, trying to look for different sites. You see, these were like the three main buildings looking to the sea. And this is how the buildings also try to adapt to that topography that is changing in every point of the plot. So in every building is adapted to a different situation of the topography and of that terraces that I explained. As you can see here, we try to create like internal squares for people, and also like streets using that walls of the topography, that new concrete walls. In this photo, you can see like these spaces around the buildings, also in the ground floors. This is the south type of facade with that deep voids, that deep windows. And these are like the new street that we were creating in different heights using the topography. These kind of intermediate spaces with some stairs, some ramps connected to different terraces. And this is just the final image, just to understand all the proposal, the different buildings adapting to different terraces, and trying to look for breathe inside the plot. Thank you.